Hi everyone, my name is Thomas Claudius Huber and welcome to my course Building an Enterprise App with WPF, MVVM and Entity Framework Code First. I am a Microsoft MVP for Windows development and I have a passion for user interfaces. To create a solid enterprise application with WPF, you have to know about different technologies and patterns and how they are used together, like for example Entity Framework, MVVM and Dependency Injection. This course covers the full stack that you need to know to build an enterprise application with WPF that uses MVVM and that connects to a SQL Server database with Entity Framework. Some of the major topics that we will cover include applying the MVVM pattern, setting up a database with Entity Framework Code First, detecting model changes with Entity Framework's DB context, validating user input with data annotations, and implementing optimistic concurrency to handle multi-user conflicts. By the end of this course, you will know how to build a data-driven WPF enterprise application with a tabbed user interface and a modern and dark design. Before beginning the course, you should be familiar with the C# language. If you know already about SAML would be great, but it is not necessary. We will start in Visual Studio with File New Project, so even without SAML knowledge, you should be able to follow this course. I hope you will join me on this journey to learn about building a real-world WPF application with the course Building an Enterprise App with WPF, MVVM and Entity Framework Code First at Pluralsight. Welcome to the course Building an Enterprise App with WPF, MVVM and Entity Framework Code First. My name is Thomas Claudius Huber and in this first module I want to show you the scenario that is used throughout this course. That means you learn about the demo application that you built. But before we look at this demo application, let me explain you how this course is structured. You start building the demo application in this course with File New Project in Visual Studio. So you really start from scratch. Even if you don't know anything about WPF or Entity Framework, you should be able to follow this course. The only prerequisite of this course is that you have a solid knowledge of the C# language. If you have also basic knowledge of WPF, that's even better. After you have created your new project, you will build a basic application to organize friends. For the rest of the course, you will refactor and extend the Friend Organize application so that it has typical features of an enterprise app. But what are these typical features? Typical features of a business application are create, read, update and delete entities, validating user input, handling different data relations, like for example a many-to-many relationship, and much more. Instead of telling you all the features of a business application, let me show you the Friend Organize application that you built, and then you will find out if there is something in for you or not. In this demonstration, I will show you the Friend Organize application that you built in this course. I want to show you the first version that you create and also how the application will look like at the end of this course. So this is the first version of the Friend Organize application that you create. On the left side you can see a list of friends and on the right side you can see the details for the selected friend. So I can just navigate through these friends. Now let me show you how this application looks like at the end of this course. Here you see the final Friend Organizer application. On the left side there is a navigation that allows me to navigate to friends or to meetings. So I can click on a friend to open up that friend in a tab. As you can see, a friend has first name, last name, an email, a favorite language, and also a bunch of phone numbers. Of course, there is an input validation. So for example, if the email is not in a valid format, you get an error that the email field is not a valid email address. So let's put back the @ sign here. The application is using a tabbed user interface, so I can open up multiple friends and I can navigate between them. Beside friends, there are also meetings. Here I have a meeting watching soccer on 3rd of June 2017. As you can see, a meeting has some friends. And I have also available friends that I can add to a meeting. Let's create another meeting that I call Playing Xbox. And I want to play Xbox with my wife. Let's just choose a weekend in May. So let's take the 6th of May 2017. Now I add myself, but my wife is not in the list of the available friends. So let's also create a new friend. And let's name that friend Julia Huber. Now as soon as I save that new friend, you will see that it appears in the friends list. When I go back to my Playing Xbox meeting, I can even see that the new friend is now in the available friends. So this view has been notified that there is a new friend. Now let's just select her and let's add her to this meeting. And I want to save this meeting so that I can ensure we have a Saturday where we can play Xbox. Now everything I did in this application is stored with Entity Framework in a SQL Server database. So I hope now you have a little impression what you are building in this course. Now let me show you the course outline. In this first module of the course, we looked at the scenario. You will build a friend organizer application throughout this course. In the next module, you will define the architecture of that application before you build the basic UI layer. Then you will set up Entity Framework to load the data from a SQL Server database. In the next module, you will learn how to decouple the UI parts into a navigation and a friend detail view. You will also create separate view models. So in the next module, you'll learn how you can communicate between the view models by using Prism's event aggregator. After you got this communication working, you will save data and you will also validate the user input. The next thing that you implement is adding and deleting entities, so that the user of the Friend Organizer application can create and delete friends. Then you will learn how to use Entity Framework's data context to detect model changes. You will use this to only enable the Save button if the user has made changes to the model. When you have implemented this, you learn how to work with lookups. You will extend the friend entity so that it can have a favorite programming language. In the user interface, you will create a combo box that allows the user to select such a programming language. After you know how to work with lookups, you also learn how to work with object graphs. Again, you will extend the friend entity so that it has a collection of phone numbers. And you want to store that collection of phone numbers together with the friend entity. When you have implemented this, the functionality on the friend detail view is complete. But your application is quite hard-coded to that single friend detail view. So the next thing you do is you refactor the application to support other detail views. And then you will introduce another detail view, the meeting view, that allows the user to create meetings with friends. You learn how to implement the UI, the view model, and entity framework to pick M2N related details. A meeting can have multiple friends, and a friend can be part of multiple meetings. After this is done, you will switch the whole application to a tabbed user interface. Then you will also build a detail view for collections. You will build a view where a user can maintain the programming languages. The last bit of functionality is implementing optimistic concurrency. When multiple users are editing the same entity, you want to ensure that you handle this correctly. So you learn how to do this in this module. Now the Friend Organizer application is complete, but it has the standard look and feel of WPF. So in the last module, you learn how to style the Friend Organizer application that it gets the look that you have seen in the previous clip. Okay, that's it. So you see, you have quite some work to do. So let's don't lose any time and let's start by defining the architecture of the Friend Organizer application. Welcome to the module Defining the Architecture. My name is Thomas Claudius Huber, and in this module, we will define the architecture of the Friend Organizer application. Let's take a quick look at the module outline. In this module, you'll learn about end-tier and client-server architectures. Then we will focus on the Friend Organizer application. We will plan the client layers, and we will set up the solution. Okay, that's it. So let's start with the end-tier and client-server architectures. When you build a new application, you might decide between an end-tier and a client-server architecture. When I talk about an end-tier architecture in this module, I mean a 3-tier architecture with a client, a middle tier, and a database. On the client, we are using WPF. On the middle tier, you could have, for example, a REST service built with ASP.NET Web API that is consumed by the WPF client. The middle tier could use Entity Framework to connect to the SQL Server database. Now, a big advantage of such an end-tier architecture is that you can put things like security or logging on your middle tier. Another advantage is that you can change the database without touching any client code. You can also use different kind of client technologies with this architecture. So beside the WPF client, you could have, for example, an iOS application connecting to the REST-based service built with ASP.NET Web API. When you set up your application with the client-server architecture, you don't have a middle tier. The Entity Framework code will just move to your client, and your client will connect directly to the SQL Server database. When you use this client-server architecture with WPF and Entity Framework, a big advantage is that you can control the lifetime of the Entity Framework DB context in your client. You can create a DB context for every single screen in your application and keep it alive with your screen. Then you can control exactly what is sent to the database when the user clicks the Save button. That's the main reason why we are using this client-server architecture for the Friend Organizer application. But wait! Isn't client-server an anti-pattern? No, client-server is not an anti-pattern. Client-server is actually used quite often for internal enterprise applications. But there is one reason why people think client-server might be a bad choice. Let's assume you have built a WPF application with this client-server architecture. And now what do you do when you need to set up a mobile client? Now you don't have a REST service that this mobile client can use. But still, in this case, you can just set up a separate middle tier that is, for example, using ASP.NET Web API to provide a REST service that is consumed by the mobile client. Then that middle tier can use Entity Framework to connect to your SQL Server. Now it's fine, you have a fat client built with WPF that goes directly to the database, and you have a middle tier that provides a service for your mobile clients. So you see, even a mobile client is no reason against a classical client-server architecture for a fat client built with WPF. In this course, we don't have a mobile client, but we will use this rock-solid client-server architecture for our Friend Organizer application. Now let's plan the layers that we want to use in the client application.